Hi there. I hope you can hear me with the music that I put onto this. um, I was just looking at some of my music, background music that you can put on to a talk, and thought this was a bit, we want change, and this music was quite dramatic, and made me think it worked in with this talk. And as you can see, what this talk is really about is change. It's about ascension. It's about how we change the planet. It's like, how do we get the planet from, look at the end of all these beings in this picture, like the one at the front is like the most ascended one, and one at the back is the least ascended. Now, how do we get the least ascended to the most ascended? Well, you have to align yourself with, I call it, the heaven self. The heaven self, near-death experiencers, many have said that there's a spirit world, but then there's a place called heaven. And heaven is where all your loved ones from past lives are there, but you have to go through life review, and that's where you look at a big screen and your life is explained to you, and you judge where you go next. But to get to that heaven self, or you've got to align with it. And this is how you make change. What happened to me was an unexpected spiritual awakening just under 10 years ago. I was 24 years of age, and I'm 33 on my birthday. And what happened to me was I just sat down one day and had enough. And it was so authentic at that moment, it manifested this awakening. I didn't know what was going on at the time, but it was a very angelic experience. And that experience hasn't went away. It's like just grown within me ever since. It's like I've been aligning with this force, and this force is like a heaven realm. That's what it is. And this is how you make change. I've said before in my talks that my dad, and not just my dad, but there's other people out there that it's like something Albert Einstein once said, that insanity is doing the same things repeatedly, yet expecting different results. And this is kind of like what my dad believes in, and some people, is they believe that, to make change, we must protest. And as a whole, if you look at all the protests, I was born in 1987 on this planet, so I don't know anything beyond John Lennon. There probably was before him even, I don't even know. But my point is that everything in the past has led to where we are now. And the reason that is, and there's been so many protests, like Black Lives Matter, for example. Do you know Black Lives Matter started off as a very good movement? And it started off as a very good movement, but even if your intentions are good, everything works by energy. It all works by energy. And so, if you want to make change, look into the mirror. Start with that, right? That's, if you want to make change, look in the mirror, right? But you see, it's like the Black Lives Matter movement. It's like people want change without changing themselves. It's like the Black Lives Matter. They're saying they don't want racism, but yet they're racist themselves. So there's that's my cat, in case you didn't know what that noise was. Hi, girl. She's just talking to her kitten. She's got kittens. But back to what I was talking about. Yeah, you have to make change. You've got to change yourself, right? John Lennon, I like a lot of what he done, and he protested, but protesting and being a hateful energy is going to create destruction. But if you're protesting and you're a hopeful energy, and you're more awake, then that's going to make a big difference. You see, but the problem is people demand change, a bit like how I was before the spiritual awakening. I used to blame my parents, blame my past, blame external things, and it never changed the problem. Right? Because remember, as science has proven, everything is energy. A planet is an energy field, a ball or a wheel of energy, and we're all adding to it. So energy just manifests in what is apparently physical. So to change the physical reality or the outcome or the situations, it has to start with you. Because then what you're doing is you're healing yourself, and then whoever interacts with you is going to be affected by your energy. But if you're not doing that, and you are trying to make change, and you're not changing yourself, then your energy is impacting that people. You think you're making a difference, but you're not actually, because your energy stayed the same. I watched David Icke talking about protesting a few weeks ago. He said protesting does nothing. He says because the problem is, he says, people have the same awareness that they had before when they're protesting. You know, they have this the same awareness that they had before they started protesting, and it's like that, and that's why the energy just stays the same. Like my dad says, oh, you need violence, and well, that's just going to create the same kind of energy. Violence begets violence, as John Lennon once said. You know, the way to make change, like I say, it starts with you. You know, what we need to do is we need the majority to have spiritual awakenings. And when you have that spiritual awakening, you've elevated yourself to the fifth dimension. Imagine, and the fifth dimension is just infinite love, the spiritual awakening dimension. If the majority, take away the politicians, but the majority of the sheeple did that, the world would change in a day, right? But if you're trying, look at all the violence that's happening just now all over the world with protests. Is it really changing things? No, it's just making it worse. It's making it worse. Because violence and hate and stuff like that is a hurtful energy. And the way energy is, whatever energy you create, energy is like a magnet. Whatever it creates, the opposite of it will do the same. It's like whatever I am, I'm affecting you, and you're aligning with me, and vice versa. So that's why the focus has to be, if you're wanting to make change with the energy field, to change the physical reality, is change your energy. Right? That's how in this picture here you get from the lowest vibration to the highest vibration. It's all by doing what I done, choosing to have that spiritual awakening. I didn't know it was called a spiritual awakening at the time. I had depression for 28 years. I was 24 when I had the awakening. And I sat down and had enough. And then because I had enough, I was so authentic, I started going through this awakening. And I went in within the heart vortex area, and that's the connection to this heaven realm. Like Eckhart Tolle says, it's all within presence. But like I say, look at all the violence that's happening just now. And look at how the planet is responding. You see? And look at the explosions. It's all energy. And whatever you are, you manifest a reflection of that energy back. That's why they say in the spiritual community, you attract your reflections. So the way to make change, we need to create harmony on the planet. Right? We need to start forgiving ourselves and forgiving others, and then we create harmony on the planet. And then these crazy outcomes and idiots can no longer be there because the energy's changed. It's like that movie Back to the Future when he says to Marty, the scientist says, we'll change it here and then we change the outcome in the future. And that's what he's meaning, the energy field. And so, like I say, it all starts with you. right? It all starts with you. You know, the most important, the biggest thing you can do to make change is to change yourself. Change your energy. And then whoever interacts with you, whether it's on the internet or in physical life, is going to be affected by your energy. Remember, when you're protesting, you're interacting with a lot of people in a day, right? I've never done it, but it's a waste of time. But because the most important thing is to change your energy, because when you're protesting, remember, that's a lot of people you're going to interact with. You're affecting their energy. So if your energy is third dimensional, but you want change, but you're not focusing on you're not making any change. You might think you're making change, but the energy is basically the same kind of energy, so it's like that divide and rule thing. That's why the system loves us protesting. What is the name of the game? Divide. Come on. It's divide and rule. That's the name of the game if you want to control society. And what happens when we protest? Well, you got one side against the other. This is what the system loves. Because whilst we're in this divide and rule state, right, we are not oneness, right? And we are hating each other. And whilst we're in this state, it stops us from spiritual awakening. It prevents us from ascending. That's why we're not all spiritually awake, right? That's why a person needs a spiritual awakening. Because what they've done is they've perceptually mind controlled us. And it starts from when you're born, and they did it throughout the generations, through perceptual manipulation. That's how you dictate someone's energy field. And divide and rule is a massive part of that, because it's oneness and being oneness with all that actually aligns us with Source and what we call God or heaven. And ultimately, what's happening just now is a spiritual war. That's why God has sent her army, which is the ones that have had the spiritual awakenings, to try and awaken other people. But remember, God, the Force God, is what I said earlier about heaven. It's a within thing. You know, you are that God, because everything comes from nothingness, infinity, right? Which is just pure consciousness, and that's what you are. So that's what Osho meant when he said you don't need an outside force to create a life. But so we're all the same infinity, you see. So we have to change ourselves if we want to make change. And like that Nivea advert on TV, it all starts with you. As you can hear, my cat's trying to still talk to her kittens. Probably is losing control of them. She has been losing control of them for quite some time. They do what they want to do, as we all do. But in this time that we're in, it has to be about changing yourself if you want change. It's like that people are laughing just now at the Black Lives Matter movement. It's a bit of a joke, because there are a bunch of people that want change but don't want to change themselves. You see, this is why the Buddhists believe in silence and doing nothing. And to sheeple, that seems crazy, but it's actually the most intelligent thing you can do. Because imagine if the whole society was to do nothing, what could they do? But what could they do to you? You couldn't control people like that. You can only control them if they're in hysteria and in this hateful state and division, right? Then they will react to what you're implementing and what you're doing, like COVID-19, for example. But if they're doing nothing and they're meditating all the time, you can't do anything to them, because they're in a different state of awareness. They're not buying into your fear and submission. So the most powerful thing you can do is to do nothing. And if the majority does this, we change the world in a day. Everything stops. And then we realize that we are the power. Right? We are the power. And we've got to realize that, and oneness defeats all this division and hatred. And if you want change, like I say, look into the mirror. And anyway, I'm just going to leave it there. For latest updates and talks like this, please do visit my website. My website address is www.lovelikefamily.com. Thank you for watching and listening to my talks.